These are the sounds. These are the sounds.
Hey, welcome to Jam the Hype Live, where we help Christian urban artists effectively influence modern culture to live lives transformed by the gospel of Jesus Christ. My name is George Moss. I'm your host for this show here. We got my co-host with me, Cherie. What's going on with you, Cherie?
Oh, just hanging out in Long Beach. I always say that because I never get tired of being able to walk outside and it's sunny. I
Yeah.
never get tired of seeing the ocean. I love it. I'm a Midwest girl at heart. That's where I grew up. So I've paid my dues and I deserve the sunshine.
Hey, well, I'm over here in Michigan still, and the sun's still shining over here. I mean, coronavirus, the kind of the bans of or the quarantine has been lifted a little bit. Things are starting to open back up a bit, so it's good to get back outside. So I'm enjoying myself over here.
Mm.
Uh, I know out there in California, y'all still kind of locked down, right?
Yeah. I mean, restaurants just started opening up with social distancing, but
Okay.
people are finally obeying the rules, and I think it's getting better. So they're opening up more stuff, but they had us on punishment for a minute because we weren't listening.
Oh man, that could take us in a whole different direction than what we're talking about today. But
Yeah, we
you know,
already
but
had that fight offline earlier.
but 2020 has been a crazy year. Like if this isn't the most insane year that's ever happened in human history, I don't know what we have to look forward to because this has been crazy. But I mean, things like the coronavirus, social distancing, mask, and if that wasn't crazy enough, also the civil unrest and the social unrest and the injustices and all that stuff has been going on all the same time with so much political rhetoric going on from Democrats, Republicans, right? I mean, it's just so much chaos going on in this world. But what we want to do here on this show is, and it's hard as artists to it's easy as artists to get distracted and let things throw us off our schedule, let things throw us off our inspiration and what we should be doing. But what we want to do is take all of the things that we are looking at in this world and be able to bring them back to what our purpose is, which is to, as artists, you help other urban artists effectively influence this culture to live lives transformed by the gospel of Christ, being inspired using the God-given creativity that we have. And one of this, we want to sort of start like this kind of new series, so to speak, where we want to talk about what it's going to be like at the beginning when these brand new artists that is just starting out in their career, just starting to get some music out there, starting to build something in the midst of this chaos. And if you look at the history of how music careers are being built, from creating songs and then going out on tours and things like that, like you know going out and doing shows is not even a thing as much
Right.
anymore. But it also creates some opportunities that weren't there before too. So we're going to start right at the very beginning. Next week, we're going to talk about people that are right at the middle, kind of finding their way, finding their lane in this world. And then we're going to talk to a vet later on down the week after that. But for right now, we want to focus on brand new artists. We want to focus on people that are just still having some things where they haven't really honed in exactly where they're going to be because they're at the brand new stage of their career. And the one thing that you have to do, one thing I learned to do at the very beginning of my career that was super helpful to me was what's called a SWOT analysis. Okay. And the SWOT analysis basically stands for what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are the opportunities that you have, and what are the threats? Because if you know all four of those things, you can understand how to better navigate your career. I don't know, you can just better navigate and get to where you're trying to go. Have you ever done one of those as you were just starting out, Sheree?
Yeah. So I've done SWOT analysis. I've done personality tests, all those things that help to just frame up a little bit more about who I am and what I can accomplish naturally. And then areas in which I need to either grow and develop or find teammates who have those strengths and bring them on board. And so my husband's a great example of somebody that's completely different from me. But he adds a lot of strength to my weaknesses. We are opposites. So we would talk a lot about what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, and then we would lean into one another a lot.
Yeah, I can attest to that because shout out to Paul, like complete opposite. No, but that's really dope. It's one of those things. It's like I think if you took the time to just sit back, I think as artists we want to just continue to create and continue to just kind of just go without sitting back and really analyzing things. We spend a lot of time spinning our wheels on things that really don't matter. But if you really take some time to sit back and look at these things, you'll be able to better navigate and get to where you got to go much faster, be more effective at what you're doing. So we were scouring the internet. Well, I'll say, Sheree, you were scouring the internet. I don't know if scouring is a thing, but I know you came across this artist that we have today, which is a brand new artist, and it's super unique because just a lot of times being just unique and being who you are on the surface really creates a lot of opportunities. And just by being a female artist in this heavily male-dominated industry, it was super interesting to see not only a dope singer and rapper, but also a producer. In fact, making really dope beats. And you don't find a lot of girls, a lot of women doing that in this industry. So wanted to welcome to the show, BreeKay of BreeKay Sounds. Got some really dope beats. Welcome to the show, Bree.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for having me. And you totally big me up. So I hope that when people give me a chance to listen that I'm as dope as you just said.
Hey, it's one of those things. Because again, like we're talking about these ideas of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And like one of the big ones is that it makes you unique. It stands out because you're going to have some opportunities that come your way just because you're doing something that not a lot of women do, which is make beats and produce. Well, I wouldn't say not a lot of women do, but not a lot of women that are.
The ratio of men to women is not even.
Thank you. Thank you. I try to be careful not to offend people, but the reality is just that. But before we just hop into the beat making thing and all that, I would love to just hear kind of your background and where you started from. So what got you into making beats in the first place?
So I started writing songs when I was like 5 and they were trash, but that's when I started. And I also learned to play the keys. I was constantly like teaching myself how to play the keys. So my dad, shout out to my parents because they're amazing, but my dad really would gradually put more and more music production equipment in my hand and just see what would happen. So I kept on writing songs, kept on learning to play the keys. Pretty soon I was, creating music for the songs that I was writing. So my dad actually got me a Korg Triton Extreme music workstation keyboard. And they don't even make the Triton anymore. It's super legendary. I love talking about it. But he got that for me. And that was December of 2006. So I made my first beat in January of 2007.
Oh, okay.
And I kept making beats. And then he gradually gave me like monitors. He got me Pro Tools for one of my birthdays and, just different things, but just gradually putting stuff in my hands and here I am with all my stuff.
Mhm.
What is it, 13 years later, still making beats. And I didn't start taking it seriously until about 2010.
Okay.
But so I've been at it for a while, and then I started my production site, which is These Are the Sounds, where I offer production for leasing and exclusives and all of that type of thing. I just started that last year.
Gotcha.
So
That's
I
where
already,
I was coming from
I
because
already
that's
know
where I
a
heard it.
client. I know a client that wants you.
really,
Huh? Have you heard of Cherie Music?
I
Girl, I'm coming
I
over to your
have.
house. We're in Orange County. I'm about to come over. I'm
I
about to
had.
get a beat from you, sis. I'm about to get one.
Can I just say, I had no idea you were in Long Beach.
I just moved here like 10 months ago.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just had to put that out there on the air. And BreeKay and I are going to do a song together. I'm proclaiming that to you now.
Girl power. That's what it is. Girl power right there. Singing, rapping, producing, all of that. Like so you have been you have been doing this for a while, but you just started your beat production stuff a year ago. And not only that, you started your YouTube channel because I see like some of the YouTube stuff that you've been doing and all that. And I see that that's even just in and of itself, that alone, just being unique and being stepping out there to have the courage to do that, where not a lot of women take a lot of courage to do. I know for sure you have a lot of opportunities right there. But before we get to the opportunities that I can see, coming in place and all the other things, let's take a look at like, what do you feel like are the strengths that you really have? What makes BreeKay BreeKay?
I think that one strength for sure is being multifaceted with, as far as like, I do sing, I do write, I do play the keys, I do produce. I'm able to do all of these things pretty much by myself. So I think that that is a huge strength because especially today, trying to work with people sometimes could be like pulling teeth depending on who you're working with and things like
Yeah.
that. So I'm able to finish things and put them out and, complete them and do all that pretty much myself. Although I am part of a duo with my cousin and my best friend who is Kasari, but because we're so close, it is extremely easy to work together. Which I guess I could say that that would be another strength, is having somebody who I'm really close with who also does music so that we can do it together.
Mhm.
I think another strength is like, I guess being able to kind of catch on easy to like different technological advances, as far as like when a new feature comes up on whatever social media platform, or if I have to make a website or like stuff like that, I'm able to figure it out generally pretty quickly. I think
Yeah.
that that's also a strength. I don't know if I should keep going or or
Well, I can add one. So we were looking at your stuff. So the reason why I wanted to bring you on is just for a lot of reasons. But your Instagram, we talked about this earlier on Talk Back Tuesday, but your Instagram is fire as well. Like your brand is super clear. I get who you are. I get that you are not just a producer, not just a singer, but you're a fashionista, you're a branding queen. So I see all this here. It's just very streamlined. The colors are all right. So like you are really good at marketing yourself and your brand. So I'd say that's a strength for you as well.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think one thing that artists find difficult is finding what their strengths actually are. I think sometimes they think that they have strengths that aren't strengths. Just because you do something doesn't necessarily mean you're strong at doing them. I think it's a hard thing for people to find their strengths and really hone in on what those things are. Like in your process of these past couple of weeks, as we've been talking about coming up and doing the show, as you've kind of analyzed what you think you're strong at, what kind of process did you go through to say, man, I'm really strong in this area? Like, how do you determine that from yourself? Because is it just an internal thing? Have you seen the results play out? Have other people told you that? How do you know that you are strong in those areas?
I would say it's kind of been a combination of all of the things you just named, but I think from doing it, so I guess I should back up and say my music duo, we started in 2014, and our first year we put out either a project or a single every month. And so I got so much experience through that, but also I got a lot of feedback right away.
Yeah.
So I think that with my cousin Kasari, like with us working together, we have different people. Like my brother does a lot of our graphics and video work and stuff like that. he gives us a lot of feedback. You know, you guys are good at this. You guys should keep doing this. You know, you guys are really good in this capacity. Or he's even told us, like, you know, don't limit yourself to, you know, whatever somebody else said that you have to do. You guys are good at these different things. So I think it was a combination of just like internalizing. I mean, looking internally for, the things that I'm good at or whatever, which can be hard to do objectively. But I think it was a combination of that, of seeing what has worked or what people respond well to, and then getting feedback from people who are close to me. So I hope that
that is incredibly important. I think that it's extremely important to get feedback, because if a lot of artists think that, you know, you have your headphones on, you're in the studio, and I'll tell you what, if any artist knows this, if you're in the studio and you're by yourself and you're making something and you are just in the flow, like you could be thinking that you are making the most fire hit that's going to, you know, change this whole world. And then you come back to it a day later, or
it's trash.
Yeah, it's just trash. Or you put it out there and like people don't respond to it. Or, you know, like you got your friends, you got your moms, you got your cousins and stuff like that. They're going to big you up and you'll be like, yeah, this is really dope. We all have those people that are supporters, that are ride or die people. But without the actual real feedback from people, you really don't know. Because the difference between being a professional artist and being just an artist that does it at home, you're no longer an artist that's just creating for yourself. You're creating for the purpose of other people. And if you're not actually giving value to other people by what you create, you might be having fun at what you do, but you don't know if that's a strong thing until you actually have that feedback. So I'm glad you touched on experience by doing consistently a song every month, or doing a song just consistently over time to put it out there, get feedback. And a lot of times, a lot of artists will try to get feedback so they can make what they do better. And I would suggest, and maybe this is my process, like once I put it out there, I don't want feedback on how to make that song better because it's done. I want how to make my next song better. And I feel like that's a lot of artists. They try to get too much feedback on that one particular song, and they never continue to go and expand and do more things, except for just continue to try to perfect that one. But like, get it out there, see what people say, and then always try to make the next one much better. What's been your process like, Cherie, as far as doing that?
Well, first of all, since BreeKay is here, I want to speak to you. One thing I see as a strength real quick is also, I love your assassins voices. If you guys go to her Instagram, games, barricades, jobs. So you're doing like these visuals to promote your songs, which I think is really, really smart. So you're putting out quick content that people can consume, and then adding a visual with it. So sometimes people don't get things sonically immediately, so the visual helps. So good job on that. As far as for me personally, it's all about demos. It's like, all right, cool. Like if I have a concept, the one thing I want to do is make sure that I get it down quickly. And one of my producers I work with, he always suggested that even if it was just a verse and a chorus, you make that verse and a chorus sound like it's 80% ready, meaning it can hit the radio with just 20% more work. Why? Because we live in a digital world where everybody's expecting this high quality sound when it comes to songs and things like that. So if you're trying to pitch a song or sell a song, it's really hard for other people to imagine with you if it's like at 20%. They're like, I don't know, but the drums are there. It's like, okay, just make sure it's good enough so they can get the vision. So demos were big, big, big. I have a ton of demos still undeveloped. And then after that, it's like even before I would put a whole bunch of money into producing a song, I would sing it live. How does the audience respond to this song? Okay, so things that I thought like, this is going to be amazing, the audience is going to love it, they were just like, eh. And things I was like, oh, this is a like kind of a throwaway, they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. So that helps me understand what to put money into.
That's one thing that I found too, as well, as performing it live. And obviously in this whole, you know, stay at home, stay safe, you know, social distancing world, we can't do a lot of that stuff. But doing it live for people, not only has it helped me to see what song was good and what wasn't, but a lot of times it took a song that was like almost there, or was a good idea, but actually gave me ways to do it live, because sometimes the audience will give you feedback, or the audience will respond to it in ways that you had no expectation of it happening. And that actually develops a song into what it's actually going to be. So as a brand new artist, to find your strengths, a lot of those things is just going out there, doing as much of it as humanly possible and consistently over time. And don't allow things like, man, my song's not copywritten, or someone's going to steal this thing from me, or I've heard a ton of that stuff from brand new artists. And I'm gonna just be honest with you, as a brand new artist, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
That's not.
No one's listening.
That is not true. That's not
For
true.
the most part, it's very true.
People will steal your stuff, but here's the deal: if you're new, let somebody bigger platform you.
Yeah, that'd be great if someone actually did steal your stuff. But what are the odds? What are the odds of that actually happening?
That's
a good point.
That's happened sometimes.
Happened to me twice.
But it may have happened.
Narrative.
But that's a one person thing. Does that happen to everybody? No. Does that happen to most people? No. Should that prevent you from actually going out there and doing something? No. In fact, it hinders you so much if you're going to stop the creative process just so I need to get my song, registered with a trademark. I got to see an attorney. You're spending unnecessary money. You're quelching the creative juices to actually find your strengths. In fact, if somebody did go out there and steal your stuff, all right, I'm on to something. Now you found a strength. Now do that again. Because if you did it once, you could do it again. But moving on from just like knowing your strengths and how to find that stuff, consistency over time, that's what's going to help you to find your strengths. But also it helps you to find your weaknesses. Now, of course, you said you started out doing it, writing songs and stuff when you were 5. Like I have a 5-year-old and he brings me home artwork all the time. He can hear me, but it's trash. Like, but what do you expect at 5? Like, that's what the whole idea is. But what you do is after you continue to put stuff out and you start to find your strengths, you also find what you're not so good at and your weaknesses. For you, as you've been in your process, like, Bree, what has been some of those things you found like, you know what, I was trying to do this, but that's not my thing?
Well, one of the weaknesses that I want to name is a little bit less technical or, whatever, but I think it can be a strength and a weakness. I will say that, but it's introversion. I am extremely introverted. Mm-hmm. And I'm not shy or anything like that, but I am very introverted. If I don't have to talk to people, I will not for the most part. I've definitely come out of my shell a lot from doing ministry because we had to go out and give free hugs to people. We had to talk to homeless people, I'm like touching people, praying for people, talking to people. So that definitely brought me out of my shell, like a ton. But prior to that, it's still not natural for me to just like talk to people. Mm-hmm. So here in Orange County, every year we have it's the biggest trade show in the world, music trade show in the world called the NAMM show. And it's in Anaheim. So I've gone the past 5-6 years, something like that. And every time I literally have to challenge myself, like make a challenge for myself. You're going to talk to 3 people today, that type of thing, in order to talk to people because I just don't naturally do that. So I think that could potentially be a weakness for me. I think it is a strength as far as when it comes to working on music because I can be alone and I can focus for long periods of time and stuff like that. But as far as when it comes to networking or like having to promote myself or put myself out there or try to make connections and stuff like that, like it's a huge weakness for me. So that is kind of that's one of my main weaknesses right there, I think.
Yeah, I can totally relate with that. And in terms of introversion, there's one of those was like, I don't want to go out there and talk to people. I don't like small talk. Like small talk is one of those things that's just like, it's like pulling teeth. If you don't talk to me about just the weather or something like that, if it's not really going to go into something deeper and more important, it's like we're wasting our time. But the reality of the music industry and in any industry, in general, is going to be getting out there and talking to people, knowing people. And one of the ways that I've been able to overcome that is having people on my team that are super extroverted. Like one of my guys, Kiwi, man, he will meet you for the very first time and he will greet you like he missed you. Like y'all were childhood friends and he hasn't seen you in forever and you walk away and that's your best friend. But having him, he's as a DJ come out with me when I don't really have a whole lot to say. Who's ever on that stage and who's ever kind of come along with you and then bringing in your brand with you, like those people are an extension of who you are. And he's been able to make a whole lot more connections and and people feel like they're even connected with me just because they've connected with him and been on the team. And one of the things that I like to say is that people focus so much. They always say it's not about what you know, it's about who knows. It's about who you know, and really it's about who knows you. Not just who you can talk to and who you can meet. Because even you go to a NAMM show, you go to a industry conference, and you give people business cards, and all that stuff is fine, but you can meet a ton of people there. But really, building real relationships sometimes is a lot better. It's better to have a couple deep relationships with people than just handing out 50 business cards to a bunch of different random people that you're never going to talk to anyway. At least that's been my experience.
George, you're good at that. Everybody knows who George Moss is. You're really, really good at that. You build a good relationship. For real.
Yeah. But it happens over time. It definitely happens over time.
All right, let's move on. What are we at now? Strengths, weaknesses,
No, we're talking about the weaknesses. Like, what are some? I want to know more when you talk about weaknesses.
All right.
Okay, it's not just introversion. Like, there could be a plethora of different things. What are some weaknesses? Weaknesses are things that are internally some things that you might struggle with. So, like introversion, is that could be a weakness as far as you not talking to someone else. But what else has been somewhere it's like, okay, I can't really do that type of thing. Like, one of the things you said is like you learn how to do everything yourself. But doing everything yourself can really hold you back, because
No, it's true.
in this day and age, when you have to run an Instagram account, you got to edit YouTube videos, you got to do a podcast, you got to write, record, mix, edit, you got to do a show. Not only do you do a show, there's a lot that goes into it. There's talking to the promoter, there's advancing the show, there might be booking flights. There's
my weakness right there. Shows.
All right.
Oh, so shows.
Shows. Because everything you just said, as far as talking to a promoter, try to book flights, try to make stuff happen, not my strength at all.
Have you found people to fill in that gap with you?
Yes, which is actually really like such a blessing. I don't know if you guys know the brand Colony of Light.
Mm-mm.
It is run by a woman named Shannon, and she happens to live in Norwalk, California, which is relatively close. So I've made connections with her because that is her thing. She puts on events. She just started, I think, last year, and I'm so proud of her. Like, she literally sold out 2 events in her first 6 months or whatever of starting, and it's Christian hip hop. Like, that's, I'm not trying to like knock anybody or anything like that, but that's rare, you know?
Yeah.
So
being rare, that's a great thing, because
right.
not a lot that's happening out there. So it's like, if you're the only one doing it, then it's a lot of opportunity, which we'll talk about in just a second.
Right.
But one of the things,
having somebody like her is definitely going to benefit us after this quarantine is over, is what I will say.
Yeah.
Will be beneficial.
I think one of the problems for introverted people is one of the main thing that really brought me to Jam the Hype, and really what we're trying to do moving forward. In fact, I feel like the crux of this conversation should really be about when it comes to weaknesses. I think that as an artist and creative person in ourselves, administration is something that we're just typically not good at. Like, I've been doing doing shows for 20 years, and I'm still not good at doing an advance sheet and making sure details are taken care of, making sure we have hotel reservations, all of those different things. I'm not good at those things. But one of the things that is really the hardest thing that we have to learn is not working just with ourselves and not working in just the creative space, but really working with people in terms of our leadership. Because if you don't know how to build a team, and if you don't know how to lead people very well, you might have people that might help you for a little bit long, but since you're so discombobulated and artistic, and you fly by the seat of your pants, you go this way one minute and you feel like this the other minute, it's really hard for other analytical administrative people to hop on board and stick with somebody like that if we don't personally sit down and take some time to develop ourselves as leaders of a team. Because if you look at people that are super successful, especially as independent artists, you realize that they're leaders. they have a team of people around them, and they don't do everything themselves. What are some of the things that you've done to help yourself become a better leader? Or have you considered that before?
I've never considered it that way, as far as being a good leader, but everything you just said is absolutely correct as far as artists generally just not being good with administration, or you can be good with administration, but you're trying to juggle so many things that you don't do it well.
Mm-hmm.
I do have somewhat of a team. Like I said, my cousin who I produce with Kasari, who I do music with, which is Kasari, and then my brother. They're mostly, it's us three, and then we bring in outside people as we need them, as we move, as we keep moving along. But I think that that was very important what you just said, as far as being able to lead people and direct people and be clear, because sometimes artists are extremely abstract and just all over the place, like just not organized, and all these different things. So I think that was a really good point that you just made, and I'm gonna write that down.
Good,
Okay.
because that's one thing I wish I would have known at the beginning of my career as we were doing the SWOT analysis, and I wanted to spend time on the weaknesses for that very reason, is because although we want to focus on just the creative art and creating great music, if we don't know how to become leaders with our team and with our audience, we really are going to lose a lot of people. And the thing that, if you look at the biggest artists that are out there, they're not known as just great artists. They're known as great leaders. Today, I watched, so when stuff like is going on in our country right now, the artists that you see that people want to hear from, the people that make the most impact are leaders. If you look at Lecrae, like there's a lot of people that still don't know Lecrae's music, but they know who Lecrae is just because he will get on and discuss issues and take the lead on these bigger issues that is bigger than himself and bigger than just music. And have a voice and speak to people, because when you're in that platform, people are looking up to and to lead on that. Now, Sheree, I know that you have this artist side of you, of course, which makes up who Sheree is, but you've also stepped into this role as the creative director of Urban Youth Workers and understanding how we develop leaders over there. What are some of the leadership principles that, if you could go back to your beginning self as a brand new artist, just starting this, and with the principles and things that you've learned about leadership and running a team now, what would you tell yourself way back then?
I think I would tell myself, know yourself, Cherie. So for instance, leading a team of creatives now at Urban Youth Workers, before I go into work, I got to get myself together, meaning like I can't be stressed, I can't be annoyed, I can't be hurried and rushed, because if I am, all those things will be taken out on whoever's next. So the problem was, so now I have time and capacity to deal with that, but the problem was, think about it, touring, you're getting out of a freaking car that you've been in for like 13 hours, you haven't been able to sleep, right? And then you have to get up on stage and help lead and direct people so that you can get ready for your show. Well, I would sometimes be kind of mean. Not that I was trying to be, but I was just tired or whatever, the natural things about myself, or I was stressed or nervous. So I learned that I have to let somebody else kind of like lead. And that was my husband, because he would travel with me and he would be the one to be like, greet everybody, figure out where stuff's supposed to go, all that stuff, so that I didn't have to immediately be thrust into communicating until I could like calm down and get myself together. So, you need to know yourself. You need to know what triggers you, what makes you anxious, what makes you stressed out, and just be very clear about where your body is. And then understand that how you're feeling oftentimes can come off to other people, and they'll take it personal when really it's just you. You could even be, you could be hungry, right? And you could just be like, I'm angry right now. But being more self-aware essentially would be one thing I would tell Cherie.
So one thing that is, I will give you three things that I really wanted to, if you could take away something from this whole SWOT analysis that would help you in your career as you begin to do things, especially in terms of coming from just being an artist for fun to actually being a professional artist to build a career, to build a ministry that's actually going to impact the world. I would say there's three things that you need to know: organization, systematization, and documentation. Those three things alone have revolutionized how I've been able to create music, how I've been able to tour, how I've been able to actually make money and pay my bills and raise a family by doing music. Because being an artist and being a creative is awesome. But doing it professionally and doing it to create an organization, you have to have some actual organization. So if you just even took a week or something just to say, look at all the different areas of my business or my ministry or what I do, how I'm going to create song, just organize it, putting it into a system and then documenting that system so that way it can be done the same way every single time. Because when things are convoluted, especially when you're on the road, especially when you're on tour dates and you go from city to city to city, and you have all these different details to manage, if you don't have a system of how you're going to handle things, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, then it's always stressful. It's always something where you don't know what the next thing is to do. Or you can't even have people come in and help you because you're so disorganized in your thoughts. People can't even step in and say, man, I really love your ministry. I really love your music. I really want to get involved with what you do. How can I help? And you're just in like, I don't know. But when you have a system that says, hey, this is how I do X, Y, Z. This is how I book a show. I make sure I get all of these details. I get the name of the person, the church, the address, the phone number, the email address, alternative phone number that I can say, what time of day the show is going to be, what time do I need to show up, and am I going to have, is parking going to be on site or do I have to park someplace else? Like just taking some time to think about all the different details that you might need to have and just put it in a sheet to say, hey, every time I'm going to do a show, I'm going to fill these things out. You don't forget anything. You don't miss anything because it's all right there for you. And it takes some time to get set up at the very beginning. But just like anything, when you take the time at the very beginning to organize things, put things in a system and then have a documented system, now that you know how to do this, you can easily hand this off to somebody else to say, can you help me with this? All you got to do is step A, B, C, D. That's why Chick-fil-A, you go to Chick-fil-A anywhere, you go to In-N-Out anywhere, they do the same thing at every single place. And it doesn't take, a rocket scientist to run the front register. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to make the fries because they have a system and everything. And as an artist, when you're creating, you don't need to have the system, get into the studio, do you. But when it comes time to actually run your organization, you want to have some of those things in place. And I think that's one of the biggest weaknesses as new artists. If I could tell myself one thing at the very beginning, I would say, man, just take the time to step away for a second, get everything organized, put it into a system, and then document that so that way other people can plug in and play right there. So if that's one thing that can help you with some of those weaknesses of introversion, some of those weaknesses of disorganization and administration. But what are some of the opportunities that you think that you have, that you've been able to have, being the unique person that you are? For instance, you're the first sort of new artist that we've had that just, started making beats a year ago and, started the YouTube channel a year ago. And it's not because you had big placements. It's not because you had a million followers. It's because you're unique. You are a female producer, and that's created some opportunities for you. Have you found some other areas where it's like, man, I've got a lot of opportunities because of XYZ? What are some of those things that you've come across?
Well, what you just said, being a female and being a producer has opened up several different opportunities for me. It has. Literally because more people are trying to promote diversity and these different things, so it does open up opportunities for me. As far as anything else, I'm not sure, but opportunities also include external factors, right? Just like okay, so I think a major opportunity, not only for myself but for any independent artist or producer, is the internet.
Yes.
Because there's just so much that you can do. I think also just technology, like having a smartphone enables you to do pretty much everything. Like there's almost nothing that you can't do there. So I definitely want to say that as far as the internet goes. I mean, if I'm going to go into specifics, like as an independent artist, I know, like obviously we talked about building a team, because you can't do everything yourself. Even if you're able to do everything yourself, you can't. But if you really were to take the time to sit down and do each thing individually, you could, because you can have a home studio. Like, equipment is accessible to most people. I think also, like, you can distribute your own music. That's like relatively new, pretty much only elitist people could record music and distribute it 50 years
Yeah.
ago, you know, whereas now, like, any of us can. So I think that's a huge opportunity. And then also with the internet and social media and all these different things. I mean, people are blowing up on TikTok, you know, people blow up on YouTube. Like, the opportunities are kind of endless on the internet. So I think that that's just a huge opportunity that any independent artist should take advantage of.
What have you taken advantage of that's like, man, I'm so glad I did this?
I think starting my YouTube channel, because it opened up, well, I mean, I can't like go into detail about it, but like it opened up a really cool opportunity for me, like kind of right away. Like, I mean, I've only had it up for like a year, my YouTube channel. And I know like YouTube's been around for like 25 years now, but like, I don't know. I just think people should take advantage of whatever, if they have a skill set. Like if you have a smartphone and, you know, the new iPhone's recorded 4K and, you know, you don't have to have like this humongous fancy setup and all these things. Like you can literally take advantage of just having your phone and access to the internet, you know. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, it does. I think one thing that, since we have such a proliferation of technology, like you literally can write, record, produce the track, mix it on your phone, and shoot the video and edit it on your phone and distribute it all directly from. That's how powerful a phone is. And the cost of the cost of entry has gone way down. Now, but with that, everyone's cost of entry has gone way down. The playing field has been leveled. And one thing that I really think for you as an opportunity, like right now, if you are a female doing music, if you are a person of color doing music right now, like look at this, like this is a horrible situation that we're in America in a lot of ways with the social injustice. But I've been able to speak to a lot of my audience that would have never listened to me beforehand. Not necessarily never listened to me, but to put things in perspective, I was getting a couple of 100 people a month going to my website. And when I wrote a blog that says, Dear White Friends, 2,000 people visited within the first hour I sent out my email. Like, and I mean, and consistently the website traffic has gone through the roof just because right now ears are open and people are open to hear that from a voice like mine. And I feel like this is a unique opportunity for a Black artist to speak to their white audience in a unique way, because they're listening, whether they agree with you or they don't agree with you, they're listening in this way. And there's a lot of opportunities that we just don't look for, that we completely miss, whether that be in a news cycle, whether that be just about who we are as people, that we kind of miss because we don't really take the time to sit back and say, what opportunities are there out there? What are some holes in the industry that I could fill? I want to know, Cherie, like I know when you came out and I met you first at a festival, and I remember the festival because you probably had 50 little girls walking around with you at this festival, an audience that literally nobody was reaching at this festival except for the bounce houses, but you had them glued to your brand and who you were because you took advantage of that opportunity. And it's not like, hey, I'm taking advantage of something in a negative light. You take advantages of who you are. But what was it that, like, how did you find that little niche in the festival to where you had that kind of impact?
Yeah. So it happened going back to like how you test out songs. I was opening for an artist in Chicago and I did my set, and all of a sudden, as soon as the track hit, like as soon as I sang like maybe like one verse, all the little girls just ran to the stage and were going crazy. And I had never had anything like that happen. So I was like, okay. And so I just played with them, enjoyed it. And then not only did they totally rock out the whole freaking concert or the whole set, but then afterwards, all those girls were at my table, my merch table, like wanting the autographs, wanting the pictures, wanting me to sign their cheeks and shoes and all the fun things. And I was like, dang, who are these little kids? But they were so sweet, and there was something innocent about them that made me realize, wait a second, you know what? Going back to being a leader, I was like, all right, God, like you'll present to me who I'm supposed to lead. Like I didn't say I'm going to lead girls. It was like
Hmm.
they came and I was like, I'm going to lead you because they came to me. So I was like, I want to be a good role model. And then what ended up happening is I went into the opportunity space where I'm like, okay, cool. Who is doing this right now? Like, who's a positive role model for girls in urban music? There's not a lot. If you look at the content of lyrics, I was like, I want to be somebody that like moms and daughters can listen to together. And it's not like they're having to like get the clean version. So I was like, let me
Yeah.
go ahead and do this. So all my music was written through that lens, the daughters and their moms, something they could turn up really loud in the car alongside any pop tune, urban pop tune that was out then. And then as I continued to tour and see the different girls, and it would happen like clockwork. I knew who my audience would be as soon as I started singing certain songs. So I started studying, like, what are they wearing? What's your favorite, book, music? What's your, where they shop? I would go to Justice, the store Justice, just to figure out what their fashion was, just to figure out
Yeah.
what they loved. I started wearing something like putting glitter in my hair because they love glitter. So I was just doing all the things to really just super serve them because I loved them and they loved me. And like, we were like, all right, let's rock this. Let's do this. And let's show that like you can be positive, clean, pure, awesome, fierce, crazy girls and change the world. And that was like my whole narrative.
Man, you hit the nail on the head when you said that you were there to super serve that audience. And one
Yeah.
thing that I feel like trips up artists, and I think they miss opportunities, is when they get an opportunity that's like sitting right there in their lap, and then they just say, "That's not what I want," and they go
Right.
off. And when God will present opportunities and people to you, and you had no idea that that's who you were going to be, and that's who you were going to be able to serve in that moment. And that's what, if you're not paying attention, and you're so rigid in your mind of like, I'm going to do this and this only, as a brand new artist, or as an artist in general, you have to always be open to say, who's actually listening,
Mhm.
who is my people that really are attracted to who I am and what I'm doing, and then you super serve that audience. Because if you were going to be like, man, I don't want to get away from me, these little kids. I don't want these little kids to be around me. I want to go, and I want to be in the main stage, and I want to talk to the people that are like, my, that are, that are
Most
married,
age.
or,
Right.
like, you don't like, if you were to do something like that, you would have missed out on a ton of opportunity to super serve your audience.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, you would have missed out on a lot of merch sales, because those little girls are buying stuff. Their moms are buying all sorts of stuff. You sold more tutus than anybody else. So it's like, if you,
For a thing.
yeah, they were a thing. They're still a thing. My daughter, she's one. She's got a tutu, but but I think that's one thing that, as a new artist, as a producer, it is one of those things you have to continuously put out brand new stuff, and
Right.
be able to fail, but also be able to be attentive to say, when you start to get that positive feedback, you're able to hone in on that audience and actually do that. Now,
Wait, can I speak real quick? So
yeah,
other opportunity uh, is, and maybe BreeKay, maybe this is the thing we can work on, but because I know that was my audience, I'm now looking at the opportunity now. So they were called One Girls. That's what the girls were called, that were part of my little tribe. So now those One Girls are like, they are like 12 and 13, and they're marching now. They're like learning how to protest and use their voice in a way that, like, when they were like 6 or 7, you know what I mean? They didn't know how. So now I want to write tunes that will give them the next narrative that they need, which is, I want to teach them about equity and equality and diversity, and like, what do these things actually really mean? So I think the opportunity I'm seeing in our world is, we're having bigger conversations now about changing the world. It's not just like, do your gifting, like, be awesome. Like, it's like, no, like, fight for people, speak truth to power. Like, there's some major narratives coming out. So the opportunity I see is, how do I disciple these girls where they are now, in the space where our world is? I think it's
yeah.
important to think through that, because I don't really see a ton of people doing that right now.
Yeah, and I think too, when you finally come out to of this whole COVID situation, you talk about your shows and things like that. I know I sit on my company, we sponsor a stage at a festival, and like, we literally have a budget to find female artists to come and perform, just because there's not a lot of them out there. So one of the opportunities that you have is like, you going into a place where there's high demand, low competition.
Yeah.
And you, for you personally, there's a billion of people that want to be rappers, but there's also a billion people that make beats. But one thing that sets you apart is that you make beats and you're a female. You're a female woman of color, for that matter. So you have so many opportunities to share your voice, to share your music, to share your heart with different people. And I would say for you, just be on the lookout for those opportunities. But also with those opportunities and with the strengths and knowing your weaknesses, there's also threats that you're going to face that are going to be unique specifically to you. Because going into this realm as a female, there's a reason why there's not as many females. There's a reason why, it's male dominated. And when a female walks into the room and you're the only female in the room, you get a lot of attention, and a lot of the attention might not necessarily be for your music. How have you been able to navigate in some of those situations?
I don't want to name any names.
Please don't. Please don't.
I will not. No. Well, okay. Well, I do want to be clear though, and I do have to kind of stick up for my brothers. Most of the guys that I have worked with and that I do work with have been great. They've been phenomenal. They've been respectful, professional, all of those things. There is a small percentage of guys who are not those things. But I do also have to say that it's not always only guys, is what I will say also, that are, not respectful and professional. But I honestly think though that like all producers in general, because a lot of my producer friends who are guys are extremely sensitive. They don't know how to handle any form of criticism, any form of just anything that's negative or that they deem, attacking them and stuff like that. And I honestly think some of us just need to grow a backbone, to be honest with you. To be honest with you, I think that especially girls, like being in the industry, like sometimes you have to grow a backbone. And if you have to say like, my self-respect is more important than this opportunity, then so be it. I'll go create another opportunity somewhere else. Or there's, somebody else who will respect and, be professional and all those things. So, and then also like if somebody's critiquing your music, you can't always say, oh, well, they're criticizing me because I'm a girl. Like, no, maybe not, So I think that we have to learn to look at things just objectively and, and weigh things properly. And that is something that I have been praying about, is just like, Lord, help me to weigh things sensibly and proceed with righteousness. Like, what does righteousness look like in this situation? So I think that these are just some of the things that independent artists and, smaller producers and all that kind of stuff, if you're walking into opportunities that seem, overly critical or like they're threatening to you and stuff like that, either get out, or if you think that you can change that situation, then grow a backbone and try to change it. Sometimes people need to learn that what they said wasn't respectful, or sometimes, you can tell people, like, you don't say things like that to, or what did you mean when you said that? You can give people an opportunity to clarify. Like, I just think that there's different ways to kind of deal with people and their disrespect and things. But I hope that answered the question. I don't know if I did or not.
No, absolutely. I think that's one of those things, is when you are a female and you're stepping into these male dominated spaces, and just, it doesn't even have to be male dominated, just in our society, and especially in the Christian space when it comes to females in leadership, in giving directions, and like, hey, if you're an artist, you have to be a boss in a lot of situations. You have to learn how to lead, but a lot of times people don't necessarily respect it just because you're female, just because you're not seen as someone that knows what they're talking about. Like, a girl might not be, you might not, oh, I'm not, it's kind of like if I was to go to a mechanic shop and there's a female there, that's abnormal. It's not stereotypical for a female to be there, and they're questioning your knowledge and your capability. And that's kind of a threat that you kind of have to overcome. And sometimes you may have to work a little bit harder just to prove that you can make a track just as well as a man. I don't know. That might be just a unique thing coming from my perspective. Have you experienced something like that?
As far as, no, I don't think so. But then again, I kind of approach different situations I try to have an open hand, and I try to learn from everybody that I encountered, because it's not just being a female. Like, I've seen guys do it to other guys where, somebody tries to give you a tip or tries to correct you, and you have to be like, try to defend yourself all the time in music. It, like, and in being a creative in general, like, it's not just with being a female. So I will say that, but I don't know. I kind of try to, take the meat, spit out the bones in certain situations. Maybe there's something that I can learn from this person. If they're, if they have more experience than me, and, then I'll listen to them. I mean, I've had like 4 different guys who are relatively successful in music tell me, like, you should stop producing your guys' music. You should bring in an outside producer. Obviously I didn't stop, and I still have good relationships with them. And it's like that. I don't know if that's because you think that a guy would be better, or if it's just because you genuinely think my production is not that good. Like, I don't really care, to be honest with you. Like, I just,
Well, that's great. That's great.
Really care. So, I mean, I didn't stop. I still have relationships with all of them, like relatively good relationships with all of them. But I don't know. Again, it goes back to having a backbone and like knowing who you are. And if everybody thinks you suck, then maybe you do. But if it's like a handful of people that are like, you can do better, and then there's other people who like love your stuff, then make it, then make the music for them, serve them. But yeah, that's kind of it.
One thing I would just say is a threat. I think what that will happen for you as a woman of color in this industry is that the industry will try to make you feel like you're a threat or pitch you against other females. As if there's not enough spaces or places for us all to exist. That's a threat. That's a threat against your creativity. It's a threat against unity. It's a threat against collaboration. It's a threat against your liberation, your freedom to move and operate just as you are. So I would say, like, one of the biggest threats may not even come from like something internal, but it's something external that somebody's trying to tell you. That's a complete lie. So I would say, like, one of the biggest things is know your values and hold to those. If it's a value for you to make your own music, then you make your own music. That's like, that's my value. I don't care what you say, right? Or if it's a value to work with other women, right? Or to create equitable spaces for people, whatever your values are, right? You stick to those values. And then no matter what somebody tries to tell you, oh, don't work, you should hold it in or whatever. Like, don't go over here. And they start doing all that weird stuff. You're like, nah, I'm not threatened, and I'm not a threat. Because I'm my own person. I'm not a threat.
Maybe just because everybody loves a cat fight and they want to see 2 girls just go at it all the time.
I'm not a threat.
But not even just as a female, not even just as a person of color, but just thinking of a producer with the sheer amount of producers that are out there. And a lot of artists are like, oh man, I could do this myself. I can, download this app. I can get Fruity Loops and I can, create these things, myself. Like, what are some of those things where you feel like it's like, man, this could, like, well, we could have never predicted as a touring artist like myself, we could have never predicted that all of my shows this summer would be canceled. I could have not predicted that. But I think every single, say, income stream, every single opportunity, whether that is an algorithm on, Instagram changes their algorithm, and now all of a sudden no one's going to see your content, or coronavirus comes up and all of a sudden your views are going to completely go down, or YouTube flags you for the music that you created. Like, that literally happened. I got 2 strikes, not strikes, but 2 copyright things on my YouTube channel for videos that, like, I literally own the content to, like, and then you can't talk to anyone at YouTube about it. Like, so there's all sorts of different threats that are out there. For you specifically, I mean, you might be isolated from some of those things, say the industry, the Christian music industry at large, like, say, the Nashville, main hub of, what Christian music is. And you might be saying, I'm here in Orange County. What are some of the threats that you just faced by just being in Orange County? Or, I mean, obviously with technology, you can go anywhere, but is there anything that you're like, man, I got to make sure that I protect myself in these different areas because this has come up or could come up?
I guess going back to things possibly both being opportunities and threats, I think what you just said, it could be the internet, because like you said, YouTube flags your stuff and they really don't have to listen to you if they don't want to. Like, you post something on Instagram, if they don't want to show it to anybody, they don't have to, you know? So I think that those could possibly be, you know, threats, and to all independent artists that you kind of just have to figure out and maneuver around. As far as anything else, I don't know. Like, can you guys give me any examples of threats to what it is that you guys do? And maybe I'll be able to think of something.
I'm so glad you asked, of course. One of the biggest threats that I see that are happening in this industry right now, in anything, in the way that I see the world moving, is that, for one, we all need to build a brand, because we're going to go from people Googling to people saying, hey, Alexa, bring up this. And if you don't have a brand that people remember and recognize, then you'll be forgotten if you're not at the top of that where people ask for you specifically. So we're in a sort of golden age of being able to have these platforms. We can build a tribe and distribute our music and our thoughts and our content and our blogs for free to a lot of people. But the problem is, we build up a lot of fan bases on Instagram. We have this fan base on Facebook or Twitter or something like that. But in reality, other people own your audience. Facebook owns your audience. They can choose to whether they show your content to your audience or not. Instagram owns your audience, because the only way that you can communicate is by using the Instagram platform. And until you find a way to own your own audience and being able to go directly to your audience, there's got to be some solutions for that. I think that's the number one biggest problem that I see a lot of artists facing in the future, on top of their lack of leadership skills. But that's going to be everlasting, because as artists, we don't think in those terms. But one, having an email list or a text message list, I think, is going to be extremely important from now until whenever, because until we own the people. For instance, if I send out an email to people that want to sign up to my email and it goes through my email client, the people that sign up for my email, they're going to get my email that I sent out to them. However, if I post an Instagram post, Instagram decides who is going to see that or not. They can shadow ban you. They can say, they even throttle the likes just so you go back on. So like, you might have 100 people that have liked your post in the first 5 minutes, but they're only going to show you 14 of them, because they want you to go off and come back on and go back off and come back on just to keep on seeing your chats. So there's a lot of threats when it comes to that. And I think one of those things that we have to be prepared for is to create our own audiences. And that's what we've been doing. We've been migrating our audience from just Instagram and Facebook and Twitter into our own audience on the Mighty Networks platform. So if you want some more details about how to join the Jam the Hype Society, shoot us a DM. I want to tell you guys more about that. But that's one threat that I see us having to be prepared for in the future. What about you, Cherie?
A threat I would say would be, you don't really have, just like with George, you don't have control over these platforms, right? So you may put a dope beat up and like you only get 100 people who like it, you know what I mean? Or you might put a YouTube video up. I looked at your YouTube page, you may only have 128 views or 300 views or whatever, and you're like, man, what up? And it was quality, everything was good, but unfortunately you don't control the algorithms, like you said. So you don't want to begin to allow the amount of likes or dislikes or whatever to devalue your content. I think consistency is something that you need to be doing more than evaluating how many likes you get. The other threat I would say is that now everybody can talk back. I mean, I love Amanda Seales. She's one of my favorite people. And she started out just getting on Instagram Live and just going crazy and let everybody in the comments. Well, she almost had a mental breakdown. People are mean. People were like, oh my gosh, they're evil. And they'll like start threatening you, like all kinds of craziness. So now you have trolls. So you need to like shut the noise out so that you can stay focused on what your narrative is and what you're trying to tell the people, and appreciate, even if it is just a small tribe of people who get what you're trying to do, rock with that tribe. All the haters, they're just threats to your soundness of mind, to your spirit, to your creativity and your flow. So you have to learn how to shut out the noise.
Cool. Well, Bree, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really cool to be able to just sit and talk, and kind of hopefully you were able to get, some ideas how you can go to move forward. I think that, you have a great like presence on social media. The beats that you make are dope. They're fire. Like you've got talent, and you can tell that you've been doing
Thank
it for
you.
a while. But it's a really great, unique opportunity that you can inspire a lot of people and have a voice to a lot of people that are not that you don't see very often. So I'm so glad that you are on the show. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me.
For sure. So Cherie, like if going back to this idea of, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, like that is a kind of a foundation of things that we have to uh, know as we begin to build these things. And in fact, this is a brand new show, and I feel like we're going through this same process ourselves.
Yep.
At the very beginning, we have a bunch of different topics. We went from talking about Christian hip hop and where Jam the Hype came from.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think we lost George. He froze. All right, so yeah, we have moved into different spaces, trying to figure out what would reach our audience, what they want to hear, what kind of topics you guys are down with, and so we are trying out this next strategy here, where we're going to take an artist like George said, and a new artist, take them through SWOT, a mid-level artist, take them through the SWOT, and then a veteran and take them through the SWOT, because at any part of your process you have an opportunity to keep going, and you might need to pivot in some cases. You need to potentially stop doing things you were doing before that aren't working and start picking up new things. But if you guys follow along with us for these next 3 episodes, like you just saw, we're going to do a beginning artist, a medium artist, and right in the middle of their career, and a veteran artist, and take them through the SWOT analysis. So we've got something for you guys. Hopefully this narrative will work. We'll see. We are going to continue to be consistent and show up. All right, we lost George for real. So I'm going to go ahead and close the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. You could hit us up on Jam the Hype on Instagram, Jam the Hype on Facebook, and we are live every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 Pacific time, Facebook Live, and also YouTube. We'll see you guys soon. Peace.
These are the sounds. These are the sounds.